Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Cade, and this is Pingree's Heart to Heart series, where we go around and talk to different people around the Pingree Center about autism and their interactions with autism. Generally, we talk with educators and parents, and today is no exception. Today, we'll be talking with Morgan Knight. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. Sometimes we talk with educators and aides at the Pingree Center, and a lot of times we've been able to talk with people who either contributed to Do Your Blue, and we've actually talked to a few parents. And you were a parent of a person with autism, correct?
Yes. My daughter, Kennedy.
And how old is Kennedy?
Kennedy is 3.5, and she was diagnosed in the Bay Area. We actually moved from California to Utah, and she was diagnosed just a month after she turned 2.
Oh, so really early diagnosis. And
yes.
I used to work with children with autism, but this was back in the 90s. So this is like the Stone Age of working with autism. And back then they were saying, hey, there's this idea that maybe early diagnosis is key. So are you finding that with Kennedy that's perhaps maybe going to make a world of difference?
Oh, it has made already such a difference. And so when Kennedy was about 18 months, our pediatrician just kind of was asking me some questions and just said, I'd like you to fill out a survey. And I was like, okay, didn't think anything of it, and filled out a survey. And Kennedy was speech delayed. And so I filled out a survey, and then I filled out another survey and another survey. And then at the end, they said, we'd like to recommend Kennedy for an autism evaluation. And to be honest, I was kind of in denial and was like, no. No,
sure.
I think she's fine. I was like, she just has a speech delay. And what happened is in California at the time, they are really big on early intervention. And they said, bring her in. And if, there's a scenario she could come in and she could not have autism. But if she does, you're going to want to start this process as early as you can. So I was a little bit hesitant, but we booked it out a couple months in advance. It was that booked for the evaluation. And basically they called me, there was a cancellation, and they said, hey, we'd love to have Kennedy come in. And I was like, oh, I have work. I don't think. And this woman was so direct with me and changed my life basically in Kennedy's. And she said, I know you're scared. And I promise you that this will be the best thing for your daughter if she needs it. So I'm going to need you to bring her in. And I was like, oh my gosh, but she was so direct. And she just said, early intervention is so big. And it really hit my heart. And I thought, okay, I'll bring her in. So anyway, long story short is that we went, and Kennedy was diagnosed with autism. But we had doctors there and speech therapists and psychologists, so that were incredible. It was a 3.5-hour diagnosis.
Wow.
So it was quite a process, but yeah.
With that, after the diagnosis, then what was the process like after that? So you like you said, 3.5 hours, you had doctors, you had speech therapists, you had all this. What happened after that?
And it was, they sat me down, and I remember kind of having a feeling like, okay, they're going to tell me something, because they had all this paperwork. But the thing that I quickly learned is that the autism community is so strong. Mm-hmm. And you are not alone. But I think, and this is what Pingree has so given to me and my family, especially, is that I think when you first given that diagnosis, you're like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what's up and down. And how do I give my child the world and more and help them in every way? Basically, I quickly learned that the community is very strong. And we have found that especially at Pingree, of all our experiences. But we were in the Bay Area in California, so we started in-home therapy, and which we started to see her, progressing. But then not too long after COVID hit, because it was a long process after the diagnosis, we had a couple evaluations just to place her within ABA therapy and everything. And from then we started in home, and then COVID happened. So it was telehealth and, It was crazy. And everyone was working really hard to kind of make it happen. And my husband and I ended up learning a ton because we were at home with her. But then she was starting to, progress in every level except socially. Then we found out we were moving to Utah. Of course. It's just
in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, in the middle of COVID. And so we moved to Utah, and I grew up in Utah, and my husband, and I remember hearing about Pingree. I grew up kind of close by Pingree, but not knowing a ton. And I just decided to call them one day when I was kind of researching different options. And first of all, they were like amazing right off the bat. Hannah answered the phone from Pingree and was like, "Hey, I'm going to help you through every step. And this is kind of what we offer and everything." And it just was so perfect. And then she went in for, an evaluation there to see if it would be a good fit. And then she got placed in her class. And it's just been incredible to see the progress and the community. She loves school. She loves going there. And it's been the biggest blessing.
So 3.5, she's just goes to school, and she's like preschool age now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And she loves her classmates so much and talks about them. And when we started at Pingree, when Kennedy was first diagnosed, she was not verbal really at all. And then she started labeling and picking some things up. But since she started at Pingree, it has been incredible. Her communication, her speech, just in terms of I can just tell she feels loved there, which, I could go on and on about, but it's been awesome.
So you said the one area she was struggling at before Pingree was the social interaction area. And now I get the feeling she's got friends.
Yes. Anything, I feel like almost she, there's these boys in her class. She's always talking about these boys. I don't know. She just has this little family away from home. And I notice when I pick her up that teachers that aren't even her teachers know her name. And it gives me so much hope and confidence in potentially Kennedy. We don't know what the future holds, but what I hope is that Kennedy can have a positive association with school, and that she, we talk about with her teachers potentially having her go mainstream at some point, and hopefully having her already with a really good foundation of a love of learning and school.
Our hope here with this series is that somebody who is in your situation stumbles across this video. They just got the news that their child, that luckily they got an early diagnosis, and that they haven't received that really assertive phone call yet.
Right.
But if you were that person that was able to reach out and say some sage advice, some advice to somebody who just got the news that you got not that long ago, what would you say to that person?
I was actually talking to a friend recently that just got the diagnosis for their child. So I would say the first thing is that you are going to learn so much, and don't feel like you have to have all the answers right now. It's going to be a journey, and it's going to be a process. But what I would say is lean on what you do know. And so when I got the diagnosis with Kennedy, it felt so you feel like you know your child better than anyone else. And so when someone's telling you, here's this huge thing about your child, and you don't know about it, it feels so strange at first. And that's okay. And then the second thing I would say is that lean on what you know in that. So I knew, I was like, I love my daughter more than anything, and I will learn, I will do anything. So lean on what you do know, and lean on if you have a support system. I know that Kennedy has a family that loves her. We have a community that loves her and will support her no matter what. Then the other thing is that try to find the joy in the journey of the unknown, which is really scary, but with anything in life, right? But I think something that I've learned through this process is that whether your child's on the spectrum or not, at some point in time as a parent, you learn that your child sees the world differently than you do. Even if you have similar circumstances, even if you come from siblings, things like that, you learn a lot of times it comes later in life, right? When you have like adolescent children. But I think there's beauty in seeing that, like, I'm going to learn from my child. Like, what I found now is I'm always like, I wonder what Kennedy sees right now. Like, how is she listening to this? And sometimes when she gets really excited about something, I'm like, she's loving, there's something sensory going on that she just loves about this. But I think that has been a big thing for me, is realizing my child is going to see the world differently than I did. But it's made me a better parent. I feel like I have another daughter that she's the beneficiary in some ways, I think, of this situation of like me opening my eyes to a new world.
Makes you stop and reflect on things a little differently too, doesn't it?
100%. Yes.
Morgan, I so much appreciate sharing your insight and your experience with us today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And we are just so grateful for the more awareness. And that's another big thing, like what you're doing. I think the more people talk about autism, the more people meet people with autism, it's better. And so grateful for the platform that you're using to do that too. So grateful.
Appreciate it. I love what you said. It's just a new opportunity, right?
That's right.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Oh.